People will ask me all the time, how do I help kids? And I'll be like, depends on the kid.
Right. Well, that be
I
a
mean,
kid, right?
well, and you have to be versatile. I mean,
Welcome to another episode of Optometry Profits Revealed. I'm your host, Peter Precht. And today we are with Danielle Crull. She has been in the optical industry for since the 90s. That's what we were just talking about. And we'll get exact number of years from you in a moment. She's the owner of A Child's Eye in Mechanicsburg. 22 years they've been open. She's the founder of the Truffles Kitty organization, which we'll talk a bit about that. We met at the Opticians Association of Pennsylvania conference. And without any further ado, Danielle, nice to meet you.
nice to meet you. And thank you so much, Peter, for letting me come and talk. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, we were just talking about your journey beginning in New York. And so explain, you came down to Mechanicsburg. What year was that?
I think it was 1990 when I came to Pennsylvania. Yeah. And I started in opticianry in 1988, actually.
Oh, my. And I'm 86. Jeez, we've been doing this a long time.
I know, right? I remember starting in 1988, right out of high school, and I got a job as a frame stylist in New York State. And I remember meeting people, and they're like, "Oh, I've been doing this for 10 years." Like, wow, you've been doing this for 10 years, really? And now here I am.
Think of how much it changed for those people that were started in the mid to late 70s through the to late 80s. You know,
Oh,
that
yeah.
1 hour took over everything in our industry. And that's where I came in,
Yeah.
was with the lens crafters movement. Um, it, I certainly want to dive into certain stories about children, that you've helped over the years, because I'm sure you've got some pretty impactful stories. And one of the things that we were talking about is how you've seen, because we've all seen how quick children grow, and over the years. Well, 22 years, I can't imagine the number of people you've seen grow up and how you've been able to be a part of them seeing clearly and be such a huge part of their lives, across the board. But I do want to talk about challenges, and we're certainly going to talk about the biggest changes. We are going to talk about COVID, which I think is very important because you were in existence and you survived something really challenging. Uh, so what made you pursue going into working with children? I want to start with that.
So, obviously I started like everybody else as a general optician, helped, adults and the very rarely child that would come in, worked at chain locations initially. Then I went to private doctors. I was always the one where the kids came in and the other opticians, headed to the back and I headed out right to see the kids because I've always really enjoyed it. When I got into private, I got to pediatric specialist, pediatric ophthalmologist, pediatric optician or optometrist, and I learned so much, and was able to then take my opticianry skills and convert that to more medical type needs with kids. And I just wanted to pursue it because I've just really, really enjoyed it. I felt kids were very underserved in our industry. I was always the optician at a place where a kid would come in and you take them to the 10 or 12 frames that you have over on the kids board for kids, 0 to, 12 or you're like, so I've got 10 frames to fit this wide age of kids. And I felt like it was such a very pivotal moment in kids' lives. And I always felt like I wasn't serving them as best as I could in those circumstances. And so that's kind of what made me want to open my own office. So.
I think that's huge. Again, we were talking about this, being able to connect in and see beyond eyes and lenses and frames, is so huge with children. And obviously, you saw this need. So you're doing an apprenticeship in New York. You come down to Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, and then in the early 2000s, you open your own place, and everyone's like, "That's not going to work. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Um, how did you handle that? Like mentally, how did you tackle those
Yeah.
those people that were being critical? were there times you look in the mirror and you're like, they're right? Because we face this as entrepreneurs. There are days where we're like, but
Yeah, yeah. I would say nobody really knows your passion like you do. You know what I mean? And I remember talking to people with the Small Business Association and, saying, hey, this is what I want to do. And all they were looking at was really numbers, the percentage of kids who wear glasses, the percentage of kids in this area who wear glasses. And, their numbers just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And my vision just got bigger and bigger and bigger because I knew that I could help kids in a way that they weren't being helped before. And as a parent, I love my kids. I would do anything for my kids. And I knew that if I could create an environment that was bringing out all the things that I was so passionate about, all the things that I saw every day. And when people got to see it and experience it, that it would grow. And I just really felt led to do this. And, aside from all that, my husband and I put everything, all our retirement, everything into it. And, just decided to go for it. And it's been a huge blessing for sure.
it has. You're known regionally. You know, I mean, 22 years. Uh, Can you relate a story or two that stick out in particular, even across? I mean, the one that comes to my mind is the one we were just talking about that you just wrote about. How you ask, you've had this patient that you have to be very succinct and clear in communication. You ask, may I remove your glasses? May I put the new ones on? And how do they feel your vision? Because it's a different experience for him than you or I putting on a set of glasses,
Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
understand that.
hmm Yeah,
Um,
and with kids, you really have to. So people will ask me all the time, "How do I help kids?" And I'll be like, "Depends on the
right,
kid."
right. Well, that be
I
a
mean,
kid, right?
well, and you have to be versatile. I mean, and even when I refer, people ask me like, where can I go get an eye exam, which is obviously not for me. But when I give a referral, I base that largely upon personality, need, I mean, sure, there's the medical expertise as well, but beyond that, every child has a unique way of communication. Every family has a unique need, that's very multifaceted. You got siblings and, you got family medical history, and everybody has different worry or concern. So just like I would treat a referral in a special way, when a person comes into my office, there's just a million things that go through my mind. you know, looking, and I observe the way the parent communicates with the child, the way the child communicates with the parent. If they warm up to sort of a a fuzzy greeting versus, do they
Right,
want to kind of get to know me
right.
first,
Hmm.
all of those things. And
Body
you just
language,
learn, yeah, you
yeah.
learn to understand body language. And then you then change yourself to meet the situation. And that's the same way for looking at glasses, taking a PD,
Right,
measuring
right,
temple length,
right,
whatever it is, teaching them how to care for their glasses. Um,
right,
so that process just goes through the whole thing. And I think that's the one thing that you really have to, there is no one single way to treat a child. I would say, I mean, we are very good at helping kids with special needs, whatever those needs may be.
right.
And a lot of that's environmental. A lot of it's the passion and love. My three children work in the business with me too now, adult children,
Right.
and um, they have grown up with it and are very passionate about
Right.
kids as well. And
Right.
I like to, so the child comes in, we're just gonna love them and go from there.
Well, and this is a good time to talk a little bit more about Truffles. And you and I have a special affinity for cats overall, but Truffles the kitty in the organization, you know, eh, Truffles was a stray.
She was, yeah, yeah, yeah. I often think about that. I did not want another cat at the time that we got her.
Right.
Um, and she was at a church camp. We have a little family band and we play, and we were there
Nice.
playing. And she was at this church camp, one of the kittens of a stray cat. and they
Oh,
had. She was the last one from the litter who didn't have a home. All the other ones were given away, and she was the last one. And I was like, oh, she just caught my heart right there. And I said, okay, if I get this cat's my cat. You can, everybody else
and
in the family, hands off. This one's mine.
and the dynamic between the two of you on video is awesome. It really is.
She's
Uh,
very trusting. It's so sweet.
well, but explain about, for lack of better words, explain about the work she does, because she does work. I
So,
mean,
yeah, Truffles is definitely, she's
a
our
working
perpetual
kitty.
employee of the month. We like to
Exactly.
call her. But yeah, so since she was about 6 months old, I taught her to wear glasses. She does fist bumps, high fives, she waves and jumps through my arms. And overall, she very much listens to what I want. And she knows, like, if she hears what I want and I communicate it to her, she does it and then she gets a treat. It's very simple,
and and
Go crow.
she's breaking several stigmas. We talked about it, wearing an occluder, and I mean that that can't be a fun experience for anyone. Um,
Yeah. Most kids, when you put that eye patch on, I mean, if you think about it, you're covering the eye that sees well and making them see out of the eye
right,
that doesn't see well.
right,
And you're telling them this is going to make your eye better. You're like, you just really made my eyes worse.
right.
This
Oh,
doesn't
it's
make
real.
sense at
Yeah, this
all.
lady knows what she's talking about, doesn't she?
I know.
It's like,
Yeah. And
that's the tone you're getting, but
yeah,
it
so
makes sense.
Truffles, yeah,
It
she wears an eye patch, and so when she became, viral on the internet, I'd done a video of her. Um, so her process of wearing glasses was so fun. It was so much like kids. It was so interesting because I fit her with a pair of glasses, and I was really careful to fit them well for her, so her whiskers weren't, being blocked or
right,
anything like
right.
that. I want to
Hmm.
make sure that they
Yeah,
fit well, because
they
that's how
do.
I do with kids, right?
Right, right.
And she'd wear the glasses, and I taught her how to take them off, and everything was good. But she grew over that period of time, and she needed to get another pair of glasses because they were getting too
I was gonna
small.
say she's big.
Yeah, she is. She's like 15 pounds.
Yup.
So I put out new glasses for her, and I put out, I think it was the green pair and the purple pair, and to let her pick. I was like, oh, can you pick and tell me which one? Because she'll do that. She'll paw on the things
Right.
that she likes. And she looked at those glasses, and she just like turned around and walked away. It's like, I have no part in new glasses.
No, that's not gonna happen.
I'm like, look, you need new glasses. So, eventually we did, go with
But
the
she's
green
still gonna be
ones.
a cat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's cat first. Yeah. But so I started using her in the office to show kids. I would be like, oh, Truffles wears glasses. And the little kids who, like the 2-year olds, like the 2 to 3 year olds, they're probably the most fearful. Let's back up 18 months to 3. They're probably the most fearful, especially if they've had a traumatic experience with the eye doctor beforehand. They come in and I'm trying to get next to their face and they're like, ah. And I used to, play with them for like 20 minutes and, get them warmed up and, and then all of a sudden be like, oh, let's put glasses on, and then they'd be like, oh, maybe if I like you. But Truffles, I would just be like, oh, look, Truffles wears glasses. I put them on and they'd go, oh, shit, huh? And they'd laugh. And then I'm like, oh, you want to show Truffles your glasses? And they're like, yeah. And so that we put the glasses on and then they'd wear them. And so it was like magic. And
Right.
then the same thing with the patch. The organization started really out of giving Truffles an opportunity to encourage kids all over the world. Literally,
Right.
we send packages all over the world to encourage them for glasses or eye patches, or if they're having eye surgery. And she's spreading awareness about vision, which I think is amazing, especially patching. If you think about it, wearing an eye patch, so many, even adults, don't even know what that is unless it's in your family. So many families don't know
Right.
what it is until their
Right.
child has to wear an eye patch. And now
Hmm.
Truffles is like, look, if a child's wearing an eye patch, this might be why, And because Truffles wears one, her little package says, you're not alone. It has a picture of Truffles with her little eye patch on. It says, you're not alone. And her message is, you're not alone. I wear a patch too. And so, and
I think that's so huge because we were just talking about how confusing that could be. This is going to make things better for you when they're immediately not.
No.
And, you know, for anyone that's challenging, but it's got to be more challenging for a child that even struggles to communicate at any level whatsoever.
Sure.
So, to relate that isn't
Yeah.
can't be that easy, in
Yeah.
my mind. Let's talk briefly. Obviously the name of this podcast is Optometry Profits Revealed. In this case, it's Optician Profits Revealed, which is wonderful because we do primarily talk with opticians and those related and dealing with them, teaching them their plight. That's what we're about, and trying to take it remote when it's applicable. In your cases, you need a lot of very hands-on with all of your patients, but there's always a nice opportunity to take it remote if you need to, and on occasions that happens. What types of challenges have you come across over these years?
Yeah, I mean, definitely many challenges. I think with kids, let's say business oriented, is just trying to make sure that I'm focused on kids and kids' needs. Because a lot of people will come and try to tell you, you need to have this or you need to have that, or, and it's like, okay, no, but how does this help my children? How does this help um, my my businesses? How does this help me reach more children? And trying to keep those things in mind, front and center. So my first challenges were really like I grew out of my office space so quickly. I'm now in my third size office. So I think I went like, it was like my first one was like 500 square feet, and then I went to like 1,500 square feet, and now I'm at like 3,000 square feet. Um,
You just talked about how you need that space to break down some stigma, to make this an enjoyable experience. No one wants to be rammed into a box to get a set of glasses. um Makes sense.
Yeah, and to make it a family experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
when little Johnny gets his glasses and they've got a brother and sister, they're just as excited about their
Right.
little brother, older brother, whatever, getting
Right.
glasses, and you want to
Right.
be able to include them all in it. I think like with COVID, that was like um, a real issue, something that I wanted to continue to maintain, because most places were like one adult, one child, through that whole process. And we didn't do that. We wanted to keep it family oriented. But we did one family at a time. And we made sure that we cleaned in between. I actually created somewhat of a like a clean room facility for my really high risk patients, where I can, yeah, I converted an outdoor or greenhouse and then used UVC cleaning in between patients. And just so I was still able to create a small, fun environment. We actually had toys, you know, um, and then we would just take out the frames that we needed and then disinfect those all in between and everything.
Makes complete sense. If you can segregate frames for that, in
Yeah.
any way, it's a win-win. To these need to be clean, these don't. But right in an environment that's like that, imagine if you were dealing with the square footages that you had before
Oh, no. Yeah.
when COVID arrived. Yeah, exactly. That would have really challenged a lot of things about business.
And that's when
Um,
we started our car side service too. And that's something we still do to this day, and will continue to do. We certainly found some benefit for some families, and it wasn't something we were willing to take away.
well, there's plenty of places where it's continued on, um, yeah, which I understand. Like you said, there's a niche there of immunocompromised people that don't know of the services that are remote available, to plug in very directly to your, where you're doing business now,
Mhm.
to make some of this stuff a little bit easier to cope with over the
Yeah.
course of time. I mean, those are good, bad, and ugly things that you've had to deal with COVID. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in actually products, lenses, and whatnot for children, or what you would do with a children's child set of
Sure.
glasses in 2002 versus today in 2024? It is different. I mean, I certainly don't make the recommendations now that I that I would have back then. Um,
No, yeah. I think about the frames back in 2002, and they were mostly metal frames for kids where I was hand
oh my gosh.
customizing cable temples on them. I still
Right.
occasionally do that,
Right.
but that was par for the course, absolutely. And there was such a small amount of frames that were available for kids. I felt like it was digging for treasure or,
Right.
finding the needle
Right.
in the haystack of kids' eyewear. But I'm so grateful that so many companies that there are, I feel like a lot of companies want to make children's eyewear, but they're not really committed to children's eyewear. But there are a few companies out there that are totally committed to children's eyewear, and that makes a big difference in my ability to serve my patients for sure.
Which makes me think that in other regions there are other people like you. I
Hmm.
mean, do you know of that? Is that true?
Yeah,
Or
I don't know too many. I can't think of any other pediatric opticians that don't have a doctor at their office, but I know plenty of pediatric specialty places that do have doctors at their offices, and it does seem to be um, something that I think, first of all, opticians, we like fitting. Oh, there's a group of us that really like fitting kids versus not fitting kids. And it's
and
not
that's
for
because we're kids.
everybody. Yeah. Yeah. It's not for everybody, but if you
No, it's
really
not.
love it and it really feeds you in a special way, you can't imagine yourself doing anything else. And to have a pediatric place where that can be done on a all by itself is like a dream for a lot of people. And then I think with more the ability to screen earlier, these childhood diseases or vision issues being caught earlier, the fact that we can do the camera screenings now and for 2 year olds or 1 year olds that they're being done at preschools, they're being done at pediatricians offices, that gives us an opportunity to catch these kids younger, and so you are seeing more kids in glasses.
It's the truth. And I think back to when I started, when we both started. I'm 86. You said you were 88.
Uh-huh.
All all the glasses I was cutting in an hour on a Saturday, they were all you know minus something. Minus 50, minus one, minus two, three, four, five. I mean, and I never really thought. I mean, obviously they're the most compromised. Those, they can't get away with life.
Mhm.
They can't survive in life. If you can't see far away. So I understand that element of it, but I never really put as much consideration into it as, like, for instance, myopia management people are now. Um, Dry eye, connecting in with things that could potentially be useless, like blue light. Because we don't. Here we are seeing the circadian rhythms info being debunked, but we do know that there's some other people that do get medical benefits when they wear blue light protection. They experience some things. So how does this plug in? How does some of these products plug into what you may or may not recommend to children these days?
Yeah, blue light, boy, that really had a whoo,
It did. It was up and
up,
then it was
down, all
down.
around.
And,
Yeah, yeah.
here we were trying to sell it at the wholesale level because I was with Wallman,
Uh,
and there was, our target was the circadian rhythm thing, which is debunked now,
right.
so it's like, how do you combat that? So, I
Yeah,
mean,
and trying to be a voice of reason. And there's I feel like with any issue, any new product, especially in the
right.
optical industry, we've been around long enough. We've seen
Mm-hmm.
these products that come out and, they're all hyped up in the beginning and then
Mm-hmm.
they're gone.
Right.
And then, right now that media is so different. So it was one thing when we knew it and we understood, what was going on and we could kind of filter what what was said then to the patient. Now the patient is coming in with the information that they obtained, and they're maybe scared, confused,
Right.
misinformed for sure. A
This
lot of times.
all of the things that you're talking about were part of the galvanizing force to launch iSeeClearly.com. I mean, these are things that are going amiss.
Mhm,
We know there's orders being placed that are completely wrong,
mhm.
and of course they're upset. Of course they're
Yeah.
ooh, of course they're scared because they got the wrong thing because they ordered the wrong thing,
Yeah.
and what can be
Yeah.
done about that? But it's true. What was available? What is there? How do they know? How do they know what to plug in to fix these problems for
Yeah.
themselves? And it is difficult.
I mean, it
Um,
really changed. Remember when patients would come in early on, I mean, frames were behind, underneath, the
right,
only way a
right,
patient ever got a frame is if you handed it to them.
right,
you know and
right.
now we've given them this, since the 1 hour thing, they have, it's like free range. They're like, hey, go at it. There's like that whole like period of time where it's like, oh, it's like shopping for shoes or something like that, but it's not. And being able to pull back from that, I like seeing that in the industry. I mean, I know we have the whole online shopping thing too, but
Right.
it's um
Well, it's not
there'll
going to
be a
go
place for
away.
that. Yeah, there'll be a
It
place for that, but it's not everything.
it isn't, and there couldn't be more of an obvious need for hands-on need of one of the biggest things that we lack, and Charlene and I have talked about this with a frame styling session. Is the body language. There's only so much body language you can read on a video. Um, so there is a delinquency there, but by the same token, we're also dealing with an entire group of people that express all of their expressions on their face via video. So while we don't read some expressions maybe the same way, there's another language developing in that way with these young kids. Remember when texting exploded and there was all these acronyms? And you're looking over your kid's shoulder and you're like, hey, you know what that means, my parents watching or whatever. I can't remember the acronym, but you know what I'm talking about.
uh,
This is certainly developing in an interesting way with some nuances and some facial expressions. And, it's going to be cool to be a part of the recognition of that. The more and more videos that we accrue, the consultations and the styling sessions that we do, because people are telling. But by the same token, just because they're smiley and happy doesn't mean that they're leaving looking for something similar to what they have on their face. So you have to do your homework verbally on a video call. There's a lot more verbal things that you can do, and there's some body language things that you can't assess in the way that you're talking about, like you do, at a child's eyes.
yeah, I'll just try to get a 2-year-old to sit still long enough to get a good video. So, or a PD, or all that kind of stuff.
And like we were talking about beforehand, that 2-year-old sanitizing with a 2-year-old. That's just, I mean, it's damage becomes damage control at that point. And how hugely beneficial that whole situation was, that you were able to have the square footage to be able to segregate certain populations in the way that you can.
Yeah, and
And
I'll tell you, Truffles really came through for me in that, because all of a sudden now everybody's wearing a mask, and if you think from a kid's point of view, everybody they're meeting in their life now is wearing a mask, and that's kind of
right,
scary.
it
And
is
so
or
Truffles
was
actually would wear a mask for me, which I thought was like really
completely
amazing.
amazing.
Get just to show kids. And I remember just putting that like on my Facebook page, like, it's okay. Truffles wants you to know it's okay. If you're wearing glasses and a mask, you're super cool, that sort
Right,
of thing.
right.
Just to kind of bring some fun and empowerment for kiddos. But boy, I remember them just being a little frightening. Like, now they're meeting me for the first time and they can't even see my whole face.
And there's a lot of truth to that. I certainly, you know, I can think back to how strange it was for me. As far as putting the mask on, two, three, four times, I'm like, whatever, you know. But seeing other people, when all you did was see them with a mask on, and then all of a sudden they don't, you're like, oh, your nose looks like that. And you're like, wow, that's kind of strange. But that's the artistic side of you, that comes out, where you don't really realize some of these things until you're immersed in them. I never would have. It's different when you're looking at SARS in 2004 or 5 somewhere else, and they all have masks on, than when you're living through an experience where you're putting masks on. And like you said, I could see the psychological impact on me, let alone somebody who's a child. who's only been around a few years and is like, what are these people doing?
Yeah. And then the
Facial
reverse.
expressions are huge for children.
Yeah.
They are
Yeah.
absolutely massive. And, you know,
We learned to
peekaboo,
really smile with our eyes
right,
for the kids. And we
right,
did get
right.
some masks with, for
That's
our
cool.
patients with hearing issues, that were clear so you could see our mouths and when we were talking and things like that too. Um, but the concerns with kids and, it's just amazing. It's so many.
Well, they're telling. I think a good place to wrap up here is, for me, my experiences with not just my children but my grandchildren has been how much I can learn from them just by listening to them.
Hmm.
Um, it the best training I got early in my Walming career was shut up and listen. Um, and
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, and obviously, in an environment like this, we want to talk, and I certainly want to have my turn to say what I want to say, kind of thing. But that's the best way to understand anything going on with a child is to just really shut up and listen. Um, but pay attention. Pay attention. Give them the attention because you're not going to understand what they're dealing with or what they're going through unless you give them the full on attention. That is what you do. That's what makes you guys so special. That is why you have become regionally what you guys have. Yeah, I love that news story about Truffles and you and and you explaining and even here explaining a little bit more detailed about what an occluder's like and how that can break down a stigma to make it easier to go through a challenging time because it's not fun to think that these people are trying to help you see clearly and you don't.
Yeah, no, it's very confusing. Our message doesn't match our actions at all, and
Right.
trying to help them understand better is difficult, and then, helping parents through the whole process because once the child is like, I don't want to do this, or they're crying, or, I mean, I
Right.
remember initially parents would come in and they would force their child to wear the patch, and they're like, they keep saying they can't see with it on, and I know they can. I was like, no, wait, they can't see. That's why we're doing it,
Right.
and most time, having that conversation, it's not something that can happen 5 seconds in the exam room,
No.
because the parents just like, my child has a what, an am what,
Right.
they don't even
Right.
know how to pronounce it,
Well,
or
it
look it
sounds
up,
scary too.
and it
Yeah,
does
but you're
sound scary, yeah,
yeah.
and trying to get through that process. And then, so it's one thing. That's one thing I always tell my doctors is like, I'm the in between. I'm what
Right.
happens in between your doctor's visits. So
Hmm.
when you see this person and you want to see them 3 months later, that 3 months, that's the in between. That's where I get to do my best work.
Hmm.
It's not just the glasses, but it's well fitting glasses. It's glasses that are refit as often as needed. There are scratch lenses that are
Hmm.
replaced
Oh, huge.
whenever they're
Right.
scratched.
Right.
It's talking to the child about why they have to wear their patch. It's helping the parent through the process. How do you continue to patch a child who gives you a hard time and is completely miserable? Like, so I'm the in between. So if you get them to me, I can make that in between hopefully successful for you. So when you come back in 3 months, you're not starting back where you were going, okay, so you didn't wear the glasses and you didn't wear the patch, but I'm still prescribing the same thing. Let me see you in another 3 months. And in a child's life, they're still developing vision at those
Right.
early ages. How crucial is it to make
Huge.
sure that those months are
Right.
being done, that the vision is on process to, or their journey is really um, on the road to getting good vision, and wasting time if they don't have the tools that they need to succeed. And so I'm like, that's my goal, is to make sure that they have those things.
And part of those tools in that succeeding process is how you're communicating with the parents. Um, and you just mentioned that, but it's huge. You know, um, just because you and I know they're not going to see clearly, maybe they don't really understand that. And
Yeah.
well, then what are you doing? Uh-oh, now we got two against us that we got to cope with. Yeah, but but that is part of the craft of what you do, and it is a craft, and it is an art. And I won't spend too much time here, but I really want to tip my hat to you opening up and showing your photography and the fact that you're dabbling into that. And because as I'm just beginning to throw clay again, and it I think it's huge that we do that. I think it helps us in a lot of different ways, and I think it helps us see some things that about our industry and our craft, that maybe are a little bit different. And hopefully, we can approach that in a way that helps us all succeed in the right way. You know.
Well, anytime you're dealing with the public, creativity is a must. Whether your public is 2 or 3 years old, or 70 or 80 years old,
Oh
you really do have to be creative
yeah. Hmm.
in how you're communicating with people, and you can't let those things that, you know, I understand the whole like. Uh, People are people, and like 100 times you're like, the people do the same thing and it just drives you crazy, but like you just gotta let it go. You gotta move on from it. And if you spend all your time being frustrated because people do the things that they do, then you'll miss out on all the great things that other people are doing.
Amen. Oh, what a perfect note to end on. And that's, you know, looking at things in that angle is such a huge benefit. And I think a lot of opticians do that. But the story of what you guys have done, what you're continuing to do, is completely awesome, and it hits
Thank
right
you so
on,
much.
right on that completely. If anything we've been talking about resonates with you, please visit iseeclearly.com. We'll be happy to sit down, do a consultation with you, determine whether it's a good fit or not. Thank you so much, Danielle.
All right,
Take good
thank you.
care.
I
Take good
appreciate
care.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
great to
been
chat with you. Take care.
absolutely. Take good care, everybody. Thank you so much.